Hey everybody, and welcome to Q&A Wednesday, where I answer the questions that you have about your health and fitness goals. Now, first of all, I just have to let you know I'm just a little bit under the weather, so I've got kind of a raspy throat today, but I won't make this super long. But I definitely wanted to talk about this particular topic because I'm getting a lot of this. It's normal. We're going to talk about why you feel like your goals are so hard. It's actually pretty normal. There's actually a cycle that most of us go through when we are trying to attain our goals. And when you set that goal, you're so excited because you're thinking about where you're going to get, how you're going to look and feel. And so you're really excited about starting something new. And then you kind of get into it and realize it's a little more difficult than you expected, or maybe things aren't quite going your way, or you're not seeing the results that you think you should be seeing quite so fast. And so then you start to kind of get down and depressed and like frustrated. And so it's okay. That's part of the process. And that's why we really look at this as more of a lifestyle versus just a short term, or even not even a long term, but just a big overall goal that we can hit and we arrive. We always think we're going to get there and we're never going to have to deal with it again. And that is just not how it works. So let's talk about some of the reasons why you might feel like your goals are so difficult or that you're becoming unmotivated to get to that. Now, if you've ever heard there's a quote that talks about that discipline is how you still continue to work towards your goal and how you stay motivated even when you don't feel like it or like the way that you did when you made the goal. And so part of this is trying to figure out how to make everything more of a habit and more of a lifestyle and not overdoing it. So some of the reasons why you might be struggling to reach your goal and why you might feel like it's so hard. Number one, most of us tend to overestimate what we can accomplish and underestimate the amount of work that it's going to take to get there. I think a lot of times we think, I want to do this and I want to do it in this amount of time. And we don't take a step back to look and say, okay, is that even realistic? Can my body respond that way? Can it respond that quickly? Can I mentally and emotionally handle that in that amount of time? Sometimes people come in and say, I want to lose this much weight in this amount of time. Is that doable? And I'm like, maybe if you are dead on and focused, but most people fail to understand the mental and emotional part of it. And that really you're going to have some work to do. And life sometimes gets in the way, and you might not accomplish those things in that time frame because of what's going on. So keep that in mind. I always tell people not to try and change things too fast because you really do have to have behavioral changes and habit changes, and that doesn't come overnight. It's very, very difficult to change some of those habits. Number two, we just talked a little bit about the mental and emotional process and part that your goal requires. I always tell people the physical part's the easy part. It's this that's so difficult. And so sometimes, you might be able to physically do it, but there's always those things that we're going to have to deal with, whether it's an unhealthy relationship with food, or whether it's, the amount of time or the energy, or working it around your family and they're unhappy with what's going on. There's a lot more to take into consideration. And so sometimes that gets frustrating. And then we wonder why it's so difficult to get the direction we want to go. Number three, behavior change is not easy. Like if you've ever tried to give up a bad habit or tried to replace it with a good one, they're very hard to break, and humans do not like change. We just don't. So let's see. Sonia says the injuries always get, and that can happen too. Injuries, setbacks. And we're going to talk a little bit about how life changes and you have to change with it. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But one of my favorite quotes of all time is that we will remain the same until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change. And it's true. Even if we have bad habits, because they're comfortable, we tend to stick with them because we like that comfort. We like familiarity. And so when it comes to the vibrations that it creates when we have to do something new, or maybe you're just nervous or scared, sometimes that makes it really, really difficult, and it's hard to take that step forward. Or when you're taking that step forward, it's so uncomfortable, we choose to not do it. So again, it's going to take time. I really don't like New Year's resolutions. I find that we make these great big goals within about 3 months. We know that we can temporarily make some changes in our lifestyles, but we forget they have to be sustainable for the rest of our lives. So you're not going to just get there, arrive there, and then you can go back to the habits you were doing before. And it happens to all of us. That's why I tend to set new goals, either when I reach it or when I realize that maybe it's going to take a little more time than I originally expected it to. Okay, number four, you haven't changed your environment. Peer pressure is real even as an adult, right? And they do say that you become like the 5 closest people to you. So if you tend to hang around people who like to drink wine all the time, guess what? You probably like to drink wine too. Just like if you tend to hang around people who like to, eat pizza. You probably like to eat pizza too. Our friends tend to have a lot in common. So sometimes it makes it very difficult when you're in their, we're hanging out with them to avoid those things that you enjoy doing with them, right? When you're in that situation, if you've ever had a situation where every time you do A, B also happens, and that's kind of the same thing. When you get together with friends, and normally you always drink, you're probably going to drink, right? So I'm not saying you have to give up all your friends or loved ones, but you might need to spend a little more time in a different group of people. So if you are trying to be really good at exercising and getting to the gym, you might need to find some friends at the gym who can inspire you. So that's part of it. All right, number 5. You're focused on the results, not the efforts. Again, a lot of us don't understand how our biology works. And so we just expect, especially, you always think, okay, well, 3,500 calories equals 1 pound. So if I have a 500 calorie deficit every day, I should lose 1 pound a week. And then you freak out when it doesn't work that way. Again, there's more variables than you know. And success, as well as reaching goals in the health industry, it's not linear. You're not going to go this way. It's going to be messy. You're going to fall down and things are going to be weird and change, and you might not see the scale move, but something's still moving, and that's still progress. But we forget to look at those extra things. So keep that in mind. So instead of setting goals only based around your results, whatever your end goal is, make sure that you're focused on, if you know that you need to go to the gym a certain amount of days a week, then getting to the gym is your goal, not the weight loss, right? Because it's going to take going to the gym, eating right, and some of those other things in order to get to that point. All right, number 6, life changes and you need to adjust. So I don't know anybody who has a static life that never changes. One day I didn't have kids, the next day I did, now I'm a grandma. There's a lot that happens. And so what worked for me 10 years ago doesn't work for me now because my life is completely different and I have to adjust so that it works that way. Even just the fact that we get older and then our bodies respond a little bit differently, we have to take different tactics in order to reach those things. And yes, it's difficult. It's, hormones change. Life changes, and so we have to make sure that as things are, if your body's not responding the same, you're going to have to take a different approach to it, and so that is part of it. So really my tips are that it's okay to set a big goal, but I definitely recommend that you break it down into smaller parts so that you have the ability to reach a goal and celebrate that. And every time you do need to celebrate, right? You have to find ways to stay motivated. And if for some reason you've set this huge goal and it's really difficult to attain, again, break it down into smaller pieces. You've heard you can eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So that's really super important because sometimes we get overwhelmed and we try to change too many things at once. And then as soon as something in our life happens, a loved one dies, things go crazy, a child gets sick, we drop the whole thing saying we can't do this. But really you're going to have obstacles. You have to figure out how to work around them. So all right, I'm going to go blow my nose and give myself something to feel a little bit better. But I hope you have an incredible week. I get my very best ideas from you. So if you have a great idea, a question, a topic that you want to talk about, for sure, let me know. You can either drop something down below or you can message me directly at Facebook Messenger. I love to hear from you guys. Have an incredible night. Bye now.